My name is Trevor Lecca, and I'm Dubsado's product education lead. Today we're talking all about how to find, hire, and onboard the right person for your small business. Now, for all of you solopreneurs out there, if you're just a team of one, it's likely that you haven't taken too much time to think about what the hiring process might look like. But maybe you're in a situation where you know you need to start expanding, or maybe you just want to bring on additional help to run your day-to-day business. Regardless, today's presentation is going to be a fantastic resource for you to start thinking about how to go about the situation the right way. It can be super easy to hire people in a scattershot fashion where maybe you end up creating more work for yourself when you were already trying to take some work off of your plate. But thankfully, Jennifer Skinner, today's guest, has a really fantastic 4-step process to break down the whole hiring process from start to finish to really help you out and make sure that you're hiring the right person, onboarding them effectively, and hopefully saving yourself some time and headache, as well as maybe expanding your business. So today's guest, like I said, is Jennifer Skinner. She's a Dubsado certified specialist. She's an operations consultant, and she's the founder of Day-to-Day Assist. She helps service-based business owners streamline their back-end operations, implement the right tools, and build efficient teams. With a strong background in systems development and hiring, she's helped over 45 entrepreneurs eliminate chaos and build with confidence. So let's go ahead and bring on Jennifer Skinner. Perfect. Hey, Jennifer, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How are you, Trevor?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get out of your hair here. Go ahead and start presenting. If folks have questions, please feel free to throw those in the chat. I'll be in the backstage area and monitoring those questions. And then if there's any questions that we can discuss at the end, I'll pull those off to the side. All right.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone, and happy Wednesday. As Trevor mentioned, today we will be talking about how to find, hire, and onboard the right team member. The process that I'm going to walk you all through today is the same process that I use with my talent acquisition, where we do done for you hiring for clients. So you're going to get a proven process that we've used on several entrepreneurs before. So have your note pen out, take notes, and I'm excited to dive in. I won't spend too much time on an introduction because Trevor already introduced me, but just a little bit about my company. I own an operations consultancy called Day-to-Day Assist, where we help small teams work better and grow further. We offer done-for-you systems and talent acquisition services, along with educational resources to empower you to improve your operations on your own. So before we get into the content for today, I want to know, where are you getting stuck in your hiring process? Drop a number in the chat. So number one, I don't know if I'm ready to hire. Drop a number 2 if I'm not clear on what tasks to delegate. Drop a number 3 if you don't know where to find good candidates. Drop number 4 if you are afraid of choosing the wrong person. And drop a number 5 if you don't have an onboarding process in place for whenever you do hire someone. Or drop multiple numbers. Okay, I see multiple. 2 and 3, 4 and 5, 4 and 5. Okay, thank you so much for dropping that. Alrighty. So it looks like we have a variety of places where y'all are getting stuck, which is perfect because today's presentation is going to help you get unstuck in all 5 of these areas. Here is what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover how to prepare for your hire by clearly defining the role. This is probably the most important part of hiring, and we'll spend a lot of time in this section of the presentation. We'll also talk about where to find top tier candidates and screen them like a professional. We'll talk about how to make the right hiring decision without overthinking it. And then we'll also talk about how to onboard smoothly so that your new hire hits the ground running and you're not having any issues once they're onboarded with them being able to take the work off of your plate. So here is the 4-step hiring framework. The H stands for hiring prep. This is where you'll define the role, outline responsibilities, and set clear expectations. You'll do all of this before you tell anyone that you're hiring. The I stands for interview and source. This is where you'll find candidates, ask the right questions, and assess their fit or assess whether or not they'll be able to smoothly integrate within your business or your company. The R is for review and select. This is where you're going to evaluate objectively and confidently to choose the best fit candidate out of all of the people that are going to apply for your job. And then the E stands for equipping and onboarding. This is where you're going to create a smooth onboarding process to set your hire up for success so that all this work that you did with preparing for them to come on, interviewing them, and then reviewing and selecting actually, again, takes work off of your plate. So let's start off with the first step, which is hiring prep. We're going to talk about how to prepare for your hire by clearly defining the role. These are the 4 steps you want to take within your hiring preparation process. The first one is delegating tasks. This is basically where you're going to identify any non-CEO tasks that you're ready to delegate so that you can stay in your zone of genius. And we'll break these down in the upcoming slides. So I'm going to move through these pretty quickly, and then we'll talk about them in more detail in a second. The second step is defining success. This is where you're going to clarify the competencies, values, and skills that your hire needs. And you're going to talk about, or you're going to also define how success will be measured once they come onto your team. The next one is role descriptions. This is where you're going to write a job description that actually speaks to your ideal candidate. It's kind of like marketing, but you're going to include all the details about the role in this description. And then step 4 is preparing your business. So you want to make sure that you set up the tools, timelines, and processes that you need to confidently bring someone on so that they stay and are able to take work off your plate. Okay, so let's talk about delegating tasks. You want to start by making a list of everything that happens in your business daily, weekly, and monthly. After looking at those tasks, you want to ask yourself, which tasks are draining my energy? Which ones could be done by someone else just as well or better? And then what keeps you from being able to focus on growth and strategy? The goal with you identifying the tasks that you need to delegate is to see which ones are like non-CEO tasks that do not require your expertise, so that you can give them to your future hire and that they fully understand these responsibilities from day one. One of the biggest things that I see when people hire is they're busy, so they know they need help. And they just say, you know, this person is going to help me with manage my client relationships, and they're going to help me file my invoices, and they're going to help me follow up with clients and things like that. And it's just not clear enough so that when the person does come on, they're really not taking any specific or tangible tasks off of your plate. So go through this process, figure out what you actually want to delegate and what you actually feel comfortable giving to someone else. And non-CEO tasks can look like repurposing and scheduling marketing content, performing administrative work, filing and organizing documents, etc. The next thing that you'll want to do after you know which tasks you're going to delegate is defining. You'll want to know what success looks like in the role that you're looking to fill. So in my business, we call this a success profile, but it basically outlines the competencies, values, skills, and outcomes that you'll need this person to measure. So a competency is the knowledge and the capabilities that are essential for this person to be able to perform the job well. The values should be unique to your company, and they should explain what mindset or behavior this person should embody that aligns with your culture. The skills include the technical and soft skills that are required to do the job well. And then outcomes include how you're going to measure performance once they get into the role. So let's do an example here because I like things that are practical. Let's say that you are hiring a marketing assistant. Some competencies that this person would need to have are they need to understand how to create ideal client avatars. They need to understand just basic marketing terminology. They need to understand different marketing platforms or different marketing strategies, things like that. Some values that they would need to have. This one might be a little hard to create an example for because, again, they're going to be unique to your organization. But let's say you have an interior design firm and this marketing person needs to, or something that you value within your company is aesthetic and what else would you value if you're an interior designer? Creativity. This person would need to have some type of value that would align with what you value as a company. So as a marketing person, do they also have design skills, or do they value creativity and coming up with new ideas or original ideas, things like that. Again, they're going to be super specific to your company. So we're going to move on to skills. What skills does this person need to be able to do the job well? Do they need to have 5 years of marketing experience? Do they need to know anything about video editing or podcast editing, depending on how you do marketing within your business? And then the outcomes. How will their performance be measured once they get into the role? So it might seem silly to think about this before they get on the team, but when you prep these things in advance, it's going to help you when you're doing interviews, and it's also going to help you when you're writing your job description, because believe it or not, candidates want to know what's expected of them before they come onto your team. So an example of an outcome that you would want your marketing person to make is maybe growth on social media platforms, or more leads, or more sales. Those are the kinds of things that you want to be clear about upfront, so that you know that you, when it's time to start advertising the job, that you are getting someone who is result oriented and they know what you expect once they are on the team. Okay, so this is what defining success looks like. And you also want to be sure that these competencies, values, skills, and outcomes that you define are aligned with the salary that you're putting out. So for example, you wouldn't hire a marketing strategist for $20 or $15 an hour and expect them to have 10 years of experience, or have X amount of years working in a marketing agency, or just things like that. You want to make sure that everything aligns, so that when we go to post your role, you're attracting someone who resonates with what you need, and also feels like you're going to be compensating them fairly based on what you put in the competencies, values, skills, and outcomes that you expect from them. So if you have any questions about that, put them in the chat or put them in the question box, and I'll get to that at the end. Okay, so the next step within preparing for your hire is creating the role description. I want you to think about this like an advertisement. You would not advertise a t-shirt saying, buy this awesome t-shirt. Why? Because there are so many awesome t-shirts everywhere. You can go on Shein, you can go to the mall, you can go to Target, you can go to Walmart and find an awesome t-shirt. You would want to, if you were selling an awesome t-shirt, you want to speak to the type of person that would buy this t-shirt. So let's say you are trying to speak to a person who's athletic, someone who works out, and this is a t-shirt that they would wear while they're working out. You would say something like, buy this moisture wicking, dry fit, breathable t-shirt, so that when you're working out, you are not, getting hot and sweaty. That's why this t-shirt is awesome. So the same way you wouldn't advertise a t-shirt saying that it's awesome is the same way that you wouldn't advertise a job saying that it's awesome. You don't want to say things like, join my amazing team, join this dynamic team. Somebody who's looking at that is going to be like, okay, what am I going to be doing? Why is your team awesome? It just is not going to resonate or connect with the type of people that you want to apply. And the reason why this is so important is because a lot of times people rush to put up their job description, and they put it everywhere, and they get all these applications, and they start filtering through resumes, and they realize that all of the resumes that they got don't align with what they wanted, or the type of person that they wanted to hire. So this needs to be super clear and super specific to the type of person that you actually want on your team. Your role description should include a company overview, highlighting your mission, your values, and the problems that you solve. Somebody who is not a hard worker, or somebody who does not value work-life balance, if they were to read your job description and you are mentioning the type of work ethic and the type of culture that you have within your company, is likely not going to apply because it's not attractive to them. Okay, so the next thing you need to have is a clear job title. and the job title needs to match what you're requiring of them. So going back to the virtual assistant example, if you're hiring a virtual, if you really want an executive assistant and you need them to do more high level administrative work and manage your really busy schedule, then don't put that you're looking for a virtual assistant. Like, put the type of role that you're actually looking for, because people look at that first. And they actually, when they go to search for jobs, if they want to be an executive assistant, they're going to look for an executive assistant job. They're likely not going to look for like an admin assistant or something like that. So just make sure your job title is clear and that it matches the competencies, skills, values, etc. The next thing that you want to have on your role description is a summary of responsibilities written with clarity and intention. So let's use the marketing assistant example for this one. If you want this person to be responsible for, let's say that you have a YouTube channel and you want this person to be responsible for editing and scheduling your YouTube videos, put that in the job description. As my marketing assistant, you'll be responsible for editing my YouTube videos, scheduling them, making sure they're SEO optimized so that they actually get more reach. You'll be responsible for repurposing my YouTube videos across multiple platforms and list all of those platforms. And then when you have terms like that, like you'll be responsible for repurposing, give a little bit more context as to what that actually means, because some people think it just means, posting the YouTube video on my blog and then posting the YouTube video in an email. They don't you just want to be really clear about what you mean when you say certain words or when you use certain terms. So list all of those things that you want them to do in the responsibility section. Also, list the required skills, tools, and experience that you need them to have, and distinguish between the things that they need to have and the things that are nice to have. So for a marketing assistant, they would need to have some marketing experience. I'm not sure what that looks like for you. Maybe that would be 1 to 5 years or 1 to 3 years or 5 years and above. Any tools that they'll need to know how to use. Let's say you use Descript for editing, put that in there and say you need to be proficient in this tool. And just list out the must-haves and the nice-to-haves. The next thing that you'll want to put in your role description is transparent compensation and perks. I cannot tell you how many job descriptions I look at that don't have compensation. And as someone who has worked several full-time jobs, as many of you probably have, I'm not applying for anything that doesn't have a compensation, because I'm not going to waste my time and get all the way through the interview and you tell me I'm making $2 an hour. It's just ridiculous. So again, we want to get high quality people applying to your job, no matter what kind of job it is. So be upfront about how much you're going to pay them and what the perks are of being on your team. There are so many job applications out here. The way that you're going to make yours stand out is making sure that you include everything that we have, or everything that I've talked about today, but especially including the compensation and the benefits of working with you. If you're hiring someone that's like a 1099 contractor or part-time, most of the time you don't offer them like healthcare or anything like that, but you can have some perks for them. You can, I don't know, maybe there's a company Starbucks card where people can go and get coffee every day. Or maybe you give them access to your Adobe editing suite. Or maybe you have educational materials that you're going to give them. Put all that in the job description because it makes it more attractive. Okay, and then the last thing that you'll want to include in here is success indicators or performance expectations. And that just looks like what we discussed before. So if this person is going to be expected to track metrics for marketing, and you want them to grow your social media platforms or grow your visibility, then make that clear in the job description. Okay, so the last thing that you'll need to do within the hiring prep stage is prepare your business. Unless you are hiring an operations person, it's really a good idea to have some things documented so that whoever's coming onto your team can do the work independently. And they can feel confident in their ability to perform because you have something listed out for them to follow. So you'll need to know what tools or systems your hire will need access to, and you'll need to be prepared to share those passwords and things like that with them. And then also, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, make sure that your internal processes are ready for someone new to come in and be able to kind of hit the ground running. So you'll have access to the slides after this, but if you want to take a picture of this or screenshot it if you're on your phone, here are your action items. You're going to ask yourself the prep questions of what can you delegate to free up your time? What skills, experience, and qualities does your ideal hire need to have? And then why would somebody want to work with you? What makes the role that you're posting attractive? And then there's your prep checklist. I won't go through it all. Okay, so if you've gotten to this point and you are unsure of who you want to hire, I did create a free resource for you. It's called the Hiring Priorities Matrix. It is going to help you determine the type of person that you need on your team, depending on the department that you have. Depending on how do I put it? The department. So like marketing, finance, operations, things like that. And then also it'll tell you whether you need a doer on your team, somebody who executes, or whether you need an oversight role, someone who's going to manage the rest of your team. So you can scan the QR code and I'll send you that for free. Okay, so the next stage or the next portion of this is interview and source. So in this stage, we'll talk about how you're going to find top tier candidates and screen them like a professional. The first thing is that you're probably wondering is, where will I even post this role after I have prepared everything? I've written my job description. I have clearly defined who this role is for. Now it's time to get it out there so that people can start applying. My biggest tip for this is to choose job boards and platforms based on the role and your ideal candidate's habits. So if you're looking for a freelance marketing assistant, then post the role on job posting sites that freelance marketing assistants frequently browse. And those would include job posting sites like Freelancing Females. I don't have it here, but Upwork is a good one. And LinkedIn is always amazing for finding people who are looking for like part-time contract work. So the next thing is screening applications. Use your job description and the success criteria that you mapped out, the skills, values, and outcomes, to evaluate your applications quickly and effectively. I recommend using a tool like Airtable to house all of the job applications that come in and screening it this way. Now, because it's my assumption that you all will follow all of the hiring prep steps and post a clear, compelling role with competitive pay, then you should get a bunch of applications. Just last month, I did this for a client who was hiring for 2 freelance roles, and each role got over 400 applications. It's why I stress using a tool like Airtable, because if you post a really good role, then the volume of people who are going to apply is going to be high, and you're going to need something that has the ability to help you filter through applications quickly. And when I say filter, I want you to filter out criteria that like was important for you and your requirements. So for example, if you needed them to have at least 3 years of experience, then if anybody put anything under 3 years of experience in their job application, then they're not a good fit. Or if you need someone who is based in the United States for tax purposes, or you want them to work a certain hour within the day, and they need to be available during US times, then anybody who's not in the US, filter them out. This is going to help you cut out at least 50% of the people who apply. And using a tool is gonna be helpful for you. So go ahead and you're gonna filter through applications and eliminate anyone who doesn't meet your baseline requirements. And then the next thing you're gonna do is look for alignment during the interview. Now that you have filtered out all applications that are not like the perfect fit candidate for you, you want to choose at least, I would say anywhere from 5 to 7 people to do a 30-minute interview with. Everyone you interview should be qualified on paper. And during your interview, you're going to look for candidates who fit your company culture and your goals. So here are some sample interview questions. I recommend asking anywhere from 5 to 7 in a 30-minute span, and then leaving time for questions. So you want to ask behavioral questions. Can you tell me about a time where you faced a challenge at work? So going back to the marketing assistant example, can you tell me about a time where someone that you worked for was unhappy with the marketing content that you created? How did you approach solving that? You want to also ask culture fit questions. So what kind of environment do you feel most productive in, and how do you contribute to whatever your team value is? So if you have multiple people on your team who help you with marketing, like you have a search engine optimization strategist, you have a designer, you have a copywriter, then you want to gauge whether this person is going to be good with the team or not. The next type of question you want to ask is role specific questions. And this should highlight their skill. So can you share an experience of a time that you worked on a marketing campaign, or an experience of a time that you worked with Adobe or Canva or YouTube to create and post content? How did you use that? And what was the outcome of that? Alrighty. So here are your action items for the interview and source stage. You're going to post the role. You're going to prepare interview questions. You're going to design any test projects or assessments. I intentionally left this off of the previous slides because not everybody does test projects. But if you do, my recommendation is that they're paid and that they take anywhere from 1 to 3 hours to complete. You're paying them the same exact compensation that you have listed on the job description. You could pay it. You can ask them to send you an invoice for that. You do it after your first round of interviews, and you only send it to people who interviewed well. This helps you further narrow down the person that you want to onboard to your team. You should only be testing skills that are relevant to the job. You can get in a lot of trouble testing things that aren't relevant to the job. So if they're a marketing assistant and you want them to repost or repurpose content, you record your YouTube videos and you give it to them and they repurpose it across multiple platforms, then maybe your test project could be just that. Give them a YouTube video, tell them to create a blog post, an email, and 2 social media posts for this, and give them a time frame. So I need this completed within 3 days, and see how they do. And if you are going to include a test project, make sure you are upfront about that. So include it in your job description saying, if you are selected to move on to the next round, then you'll be expected to complete a paid test project and, only apply if that's something that you're able to do. Okay. And then you'll want to set up a process to review and source your applications before you interview. And then after you've interviewed the people and sent a test project, you want to set aside a process to review those test projects and pick out the one that did the best. Moving on to the R, which is review and select. This is how you're going to make the right decision without overthinking it. You're going to take everything that you prepared in the first stage, which was hiring prep, and you're going to create some type of scoring system for yourself. So in the beginning, if you listed that you really wanted someone who was really good with content creation and not necessarily the marketing strategy piece, then put that on your scoring system. You also want to focus on role fit and company culture. Maybe you have 2 candidates that have the same exact skill and they can definitely get the job done, but one is not really a good culture fit. So choose the one who is. The next one, or the next thing is stick to your original criteria. If you have things outlined in the beginning that you really want from someone, just stick to that. You'll meet a lot of great people throughout the interview process. And trust me, if you go through this process, you'll want to hire them all. But chances are you only have one position for them. So stick to the original criteria. Make sure that you are choosing the best fit. So here are your action items. You're going to score your top candidates and then align your final decision with your original hiring goals. Okay, last portion of this is equip and onboard. Here's how you're going to create a smooth onboarding process to set your hire up for success. You're going to share any tools and resources that this person needs. You're going to create a structured training plan for this person. And you're also going to set expectations. So when I talk about tools, I have another slide that's showing you a couple of tools that you can use, but make sure that they have access to everything they need within their first couple of days of being onboarded to the team. If you need to share passwords, make sure that you have a tool that you're able to do that securely. Moving to creating a structured training plan, make sure that you have clear steps for what this person is going to be doing in their first 30, 60, and 90 days so that they can integrate into your team. If you're hiring someone who's more of like a specialist or they have more experience, then you likely won't need to spend much time training. But if you're hiring for an entry-level role like an assistant, you likely need to train them on how to, work within your business. So make sure that you have something for them to follow, even if it's only, a manual that you created or some tutorial videos. Make sure that they have something they can reference. And then you want to set expectations. So you've already set expectations up front, but you want to communicate these once they actually get onto your team. Make sure that they fully understand their objectives and what's required of them on your team. So if you expect them by month 3 to have some, if you're hiring a marketing assistant, if you expect to see some results on your social media, like more followers or more clients, then make sure there's a tangible number that they can work towards, so that they are hitting milestones and actually, being an asset to the team. And then the next one is, that's pretty much it. Okay, so tools for onboarding. I recommend Dubsado for contract signing. You can also use, I know Google has a signing feature. You can send a PDF and have them sign it. Jotform has a signing feature. Just anything that's going to allow you to have them sign a contract. The next one is Gusto and QuickBooks. They're kind of the same. QuickBooks handles payroll, and you can also use it for bookkeeping. Gusto handles payroll, and you can also, like if you're going to provide benefits, they do benefits through Gusto and different things like that. So either one of those will work depending on, if you're going to be offering benefits or anything like that. And then LastPass and also 1Password are great for secure password sharing. So here is your checklist for equipping and onboarding. You're going to develop your onboarding plan. You're going to provide role-specific training, and then you're going to conduct regular check-ins to make sure that that person is progressing in their role. All right, so if you missed the hiring priority matrix in the beginning of the presentation, it's here again. So you can scan the QR code and download that. And that's pretty much it. I am free to answer any questions. So what questions do you have?
Fantastic. Pardon me. Thank you so much for doing that, Jennifer. That was really great. I really love how you broke down that whole process because it's something that I've never thought about personally. Just thinking about like, okay, I need to hire somebody. It's good to have that sort of framework and that whole step process to get you there. I think that a lot of people would look past that very easily and then find themselves confused. So I really appreciate you breaking that all down for us. We do have some good questions here for us. So let's go ahead and jump into it.
Okay, awesome.
So let's see here. Haley asks, how do you suggest we learn what appropriate compensation is to offer for positions that we're hiring for?
I would suggest doing research. So typically when my clients are hiring for, let's say they're hiring a senior copywriter, my team will do research on how much senior copywriters are being paid, whether they're freelance or full-time. You can find a lot of that information from browsing job applications on like LinkedIn, and then also looking at, I believe Glassdoor has good benchmarks. If they're going to be in a specific state, make sure you're looking in that specific state to see what the compensation is in that state. Because someone who lives in New York is going to get paid a lot more than someone who lives in, Georgia or something like that. So that's how I'd recommend finding compensation.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's kind of what I would have figured. How would you go about it though, in the sense of, let's say the role was a virtual role, right? Maybe they live in an entirely different state. Does that change the kind of calculus that you would do as far as setting the compensation?
If you're doing like a virtual assistant or like an operations manager, It would pretty much be the same. I would fall in the middle of that range. Like if
Okay.
you're looking, instead of searching how much do you pay this person in this state, how much are these people paid, period, on an
Sure.
hourly or a salary basis, and then go in the middle of that range. And then also look at what you're requiring of them. And just think about like if you were an operations manager, if you were a marketing manager, how much would you feel comfortable being paid for? Typically, you want to pay freelancers and hire a higher hourly rate than you would pay a full-time employee because there are no benefits and because you're not taking taxes out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool. No, that makes perfect sense. That's really helpful. Awesome. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Roxanne asks, I find that I fall in love with candidates quickly. Can you give me an example of the scoring matrix? Do you have maybe a filled out version of that, or maybe just some tips on how to kind of keep yourself in an objective place instead of getting into that subjective area quickly?
So I don't have a filled out version that will not share
Private
any
information.
client information, but I will say the test projects really help you fall out of love with candidates quickly. If you hmm, Another thing is asking people for samples of their work before or during the job application. So if you're falling in love with their long written response that they wrote and how much they would love to be on your team and their background, etc., ask them to submit like a portfolio or ask them to submit some case studies that they've done before. And you'll quickly see that the majority of people will not have, well, I won't say the majority. There are going to be a good amount of people that have good samples of work and people that don't have good samples of work.
Sure.
So I would say, as much as possible, try to take your feelings out of the hiring process and think about who is going to be the best person to help me grow my company. Because you're not looking for a friend or like a bestie. You're looking for someone who's going to come in and be able to execute in the area that you want them to execute in. So ask for samples of work before. Definitely do a test project. I've had so many candidates that I thought would be a great fit, and their test projects weren't bad. They just weren't the best. So if you send out 3 to 5 test projects, you should be able to tell which one did the best quality work. So that would be my example. And
Totally.
yeah.
No, that's fantastic. Haley had a question that just asks, is fractional the same as freelance? And what's your perspective on that? Because I think that that definition might change from person to person, but what do you think there?
I think it's different. I think if you're using the term to put it in your job description, you're going to attract a different type of person. If you're
Sure.
saying you're looking for a freelance marketing person, you're going to attract a different type of person than if you're saying I'm looking for a fractional chief marketing officer, simply
Yeah,
because chief or fractional kind of falls within like the corporate space.
sure.
So a lot more people who come from those environments or have that type of experience will label themselves as fractional support because they're supposed to be more executive level support. If you're looking for a freelancer, it doesn't mean that they don't have great skills or that they're not, senior level. It's just a different way to name the role. I would say depending on your company and how much you're going to be paying them, you would go, if you know, either way. Hopefully that helps.
I think that makes sense, definitely. Cool. Kim Monique asks, what is a framework or method to determine what type of role I need? I go back and forth between virtual assistants versus operations manager, for example. So she's trying to pin down exactly the kind of person or the kind of role that she needs.
Yeah. So the hiring matrix that I have will help you with that. But just to answer you right here, look at go back to the tasks that you need them to do. Virtual assistants are task based, so they will be handling more administrative work, things that you can just give them and they can execute. An operations manager is going to oversee your team. So if you don't have a team, or if you don't plan on building a team, or if you just don't need anyone who's going to be overseeing things for you, then you might want to go with the virtual assistant. So it's just a change in leadership. Like a virtual assistant is more going to be the person who you're going to give tasks and they're going to go and execute. An operations manager is going to be someone who's able to lead and kind of give you more strategy and operational things.
Got it. That makes perfect sense. Haley asks, is it weird to have freelancers sign an NDA or is that okay?
No, that's perfectly okay. We've had freelancers sign NDAs before they get to the test project, depending on the type of company it's for. If you're going to be giving any, sensitive information away, have people sign an NDA. If they're not signing an NDA, have them sign an independent contractor agreement. If they're not an independent contractor, have them sign an employment contract. Everybody needs a contract.
Yeah, it sounds like a good call. And is it the case where if you offer or saying, "Hey, I want you to sign an NDA before you do this test project," and they're like, "I'm not comfortable with that," that's a pretty glaring red flag for you, I'm assuming. Yeah,
Yes, it is a red flag. So yeah.
definitely. Cool. Let's see. Haley also asks, how would you pay the test project at the same rate as the job itself then? I'm assuming it'd be some sort of prorate, right? Depending on if the person's hourly or salary. But as far as payment for that test project is concerned, how would you kind of do that math?
Yeah, so let's say you're paying someone $2,000 a month to work for 20 hours. Then typically, we've never hired anyone who was not like an hourly employee.
Okay.
So just take the hourly rate, and if the test project is 2 hours long, then pay them $100, because that would be $50 an hour. If they are more salary and you don't have an hourly benchmark for them, then do research on the hourly rate for that person in that role and pay them that hourly rate.
Totally. That definitely makes sense. Awesome. I had a couple questions myself. That's all the questions from my chat for the time being, though folks feel free to throw more questions in there in the chat if you like. But you mentioned the like join our team in a job posting, right, as like an example of a not so great job posting. And I was just curious, just in your experience, have you seen any other examples of a not so good job posting and just maybe some pitfalls to keep an eye out for? Because it's been a minute, thankfully, since I've looked at job postings myself, but it always cracks me up when I go through job postings and I'm like, man, that doesn't sound very good. And I think people don't realize what it comes off as or how it appears to the potential applicants. So, do you have any other ideas on what not to do?
Yeah, I would say never post a job without compensation. Never use vague terms about your business or about what you do. Because, we are small business owners, we're not corporations. People don't have any background knowledge about your company.
Sure.
So if I was applying for Coca-Cola, I already know about Coca-Cola. They're great. They're everywhere. They make a bunch of money. But if I'm, going to apply for a small business, I don't know anything about you. And especially if you don't have a website or you're not on social media. So give me enough information so that I can look at the top of the job description and know that, oh, this is a company that I could actually get behind. This is a company that has a mission that I align with. So I would just say any job description that doesn't have compensation, that has very vague terminology about your business, and that doesn't clearly outline the responsibilities that you want the person to do is not a good job description. They should look at that and know, oh, this is a good fit for me and my skill set, and this is a company that I want to work for. Um, you know, Within the first couple of minutes of looking at it.
Yeah, they should be able to walk away from that job posting with all those questions answered, essentially. Cool.
Yes.
Awesome. Then my last question was, does the number of rounds of interviews change depending on the role, or is it more personal preference? Obviously, it has to do with the fact if you're going to be doing a test project or not, but do you always recommend a certain number of rounds of interviews or not so much, and it's just kind of case by case?
It depends on the size of your team and who you will have this person working with. So I would say if it's just you and you're hiring an assistant, then that first interview before you give them a test project will suffice.
Okay.
If you have, a larger team, let's say you have 10 people on your team and this marketing assistant is going to come and integrate with the marketing team, then I would say have the preliminary interview up front, and then also give them the test project. And maybe if your marketing team wants to ask them a couple of questions, do that as well. I wouldn't go over 2 interviews if you're going to do a test project, just because it gets pretty lengthy. And it's just not necessary if you're asking the right questions and if you're testing them the right way.
Cool. No, that makes sense. All right, let's go with last question here from HR, and it's a good one. He said, "What is your opinion on applicants using AI or ChatGPT to write their cover letters?"
Mm, I would say everybody's using AI these days. Um, the best way to test and see if a candidate is a good fit, whether they use AI or not, is to have really good interview questions. So ask them questions face to face where you can gauge their response in real time. And also, you don't want to ask a lot of questions on the the job questionnaire that require them to write. That job questionnaire is just supposed to vet whether or not this person meets your qualifications. So, do they have X amount of years of experience? Are they proficient in the tech tools that you want? Do they live in the state that you're hiring in,
Sure.
etc.? Maybe one long form question. Um, I don't ever ask for cover letters, only resumes and portfolios or samples of work. But yeah, I think everybody's using AI. The best way to see if somebody's actually a good fit is to ask them questions up front and to have them do a test project. And if you notice that the things that they submit, if you don't like for it to look like AI, then you just don't choose them.
Yeah, totally. I guess it sounds to me like if your job questionnaire rather is asking a bunch of long form questions, people are going to try to use AI in those cases if they're being asked to write a lot. And whether or not they do
Yes,
well in those questions is one thing, but you'd rather see how they actually answer those questions in person, right? So you may as well ask those questions later when you see them in person.
correct.
Got it. We do have one more question here from Gracia. Any advice
Okay.
for someone who, sorry, I know, are you okay to stay on for one more question?
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. Any advice from someone who's been a team of one, who's just finally switching gears to bringing on a team for business expansion? So somebody who has never done any hiring before. Any last bits, tips, and tricks for someone who's going to start expanding, other than obviously everything we've talked about today?
Yeah. I would say, depending on your business model, it doesn't sound like you are an agency because you're just one. So I would say hire for someone who is going to either save you time or make you more money. So maybe you go through that framework I gave you and you list out all the tasks that happen in your business and you realize that you spend a lot of time on administrative work or you spend a lot of time repurposing content. Hire someone who's going to take that off your plate so that you can step back into your CEO role and focus on sales and growth. Also, I would say hmm, start small with your hours. There are people out there who are willing to work 5 hours a week, 10 hours a month. If you've never hired before, you don't just want to dump everything off onto someone because you've never, like, you still have to practice like leadership skills, delegation skills, and you want to ease yourself into it. You know, it's my assumption. So I would say, start small with someone who can work a couple of hours or a set amount of hours per month or week and just see kind of what that looks like for you delegating. And that would be my advice for that.
Yeah, no, I think that's really good advice. It makes sense not to jump straight into the deep end if it's something that you've never really done before. You're not sure what that scenario is going to look like. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer, I really want to thank you again for taking the time today and that presentation. It was really fantastic. We had so many good questions from the chat, so thank you all for being here today too. I really appreciate it. Everyone who's been here and is registered is going to be receiving an email about an hour after this is done with the recording and a copy of Jennifer's slides. So keep an eye out for that. Make sure to grab her freebie. That's using that QR code or the link that I threw there in chat. And otherwise, Jennifer, we'd love to have you back on again in the future. But thank you so, so much. We'll catch you again soon, okay?
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for staying.
Bye.